Though I'm the moderator, I'm actually going to do very little talking. I do want to open some time. I was talking to our panels for some questions from the audience. We do have a lot to cover off, so I'm just going to hand over to each one that'll do an introduction of their business, focusing on maybe the stage you're at, and just a quick overview of what you do. So, Alan, why don't you kick it off?
Okay, so I started Possible back in 2010. And more recently, a company called Birchal we launched last year. We've become one of the first equity crowdfunding platforms to get licensed in Australia. So we help companies and brands raise capital from pretty much anyone in Australia. Anyone globally, actually. But we've got a license to be able to facilitate that. So that's pretty much an introduction to me.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Scrunch, and Scrunch is a data-driven influencer marketing platform. So essentially we built a piece of software that connects brands and agencies to over 20 million influencers globally, and our key difference is really that we use data and AI to understand who an influencer's audience actually is, to de-risk influencer marketing and ensure that people are actually measuring ROI.
Hi everyone, I'm Monica Wulff. I'm co-founder and director of Startup Muster. Startup Muster is the largest survey of the Australian startup ecosystem, and from that we produce an annual report that's full of a ton of statistics about what's happening in the Australian startup ecosystem, what are the founders experiencing, and relevant here today, 67% of startups in Australia are in B2B.
Hi guys, my name's Jess. I'm from Collabosaurus, and Collabosaurus is a B2B marketing tool that connects brands for promotional partnerships. So if you've seen things like GoPro and Red Bull or Spotify and Uber teaming up for cross-promotional marketing campaigns, that's what Collabosaurus does. We often get referred to as Tinder for business, if that's easier to remember. And we are a marketing tool actually up to 30 times less expensive than other digital advertising, which is huge.
Fantastic. So within all your businesses, we might just start with Jess. What did you find? Why did you start it? Where was the hole in the market? Because B2B, connections is something that has been done before. LinkedIn do it, a lot of other people. So why are you different, and where was the hole?
That's a big question. I think I started it because at first I was really frustrated. I was working in PR and we were pulling together media launch events for our clients, showcasing the new fashion range to bloggers and journalists basically on a quarterly basis. And we were trying to do this on such a budget that we were pulling together catering partners, venue partners, photographers, hair and makeup artists, goodie bag inclusions. And it was always just such a scramble and really time consuming. And there was nothing out there that streamlined the strategic partnership process in a way that really helped brands confidently leverage those opportunities and tap into new networks as well. So, in terms of how we're different, that's interesting. I think we often get confused with influencer marketing platforms where they focus on influencer to brand connections, or LinkedIn, for example, is individual to individual connections and networking, whereas Collabosaurus is brand to brand and it's marketing focused. So it's specifically around event, product, and social media collaborations.
Wonderful. Danielle, Scrunch.
Yes, so we started Scrunch about 8 years ago, and we did not start in influencer marketing, so we did not have a vision of this problem that we were solving. Ours was really an evolution, and that was probably, a startup, first startup founder kind of lesson that I had to learn. So we were actually 3 other things before we were an influencer marketing platform, but fortunately by the time we got 4 years into our journey, we finally figured out how to listen to our customers, understand how to identify gaps in the market. And at that time, the first sort of $1 million influencer happened. And we had been building some technology in press monitoring and inventory monitoring, and we thought we could apply that same tech to the influencer world. And we sort of thought we would take a bit of a different approach. We started to see people matching influencers to brands, and we knew that there wasn't going to be a lot of longevity in just marketplaces, so we backed data early on. It did mean it was sort of a slower path to market, but it's now starting to pay off now that people are understanding the value of it.
Is that the same as, what's his name, Jules the guy after it is, isn't it? Is it similar
it's
marketplace?
It's the same industry, so we both
Yep.
work in influencer marketing, but we both take a bit of a different approach. So they take a very content-driven approach,
Yep.
and we really believe in identifying the right influencer that speaks to the right audience who can actually buy your product.
So I think one of the key things about what you said is the ability to pivot and see that what you start off with is actually probably not what you're going to end up with. And I have seen a lot of startups, and a lot of failure is that we've gone in and smacked our head against the wall going, actually, we know better than the market. This is going to work. This is going to work. When it doesn't. So, Alan, when you first started, I should say the Birchal business, is it what you envisaged it would be today?
Okay, so I only launched Birchal at the end of last year, but it's something we've been waiting for probably about 4 or 5 years. So really, I suppose my startup journey, like I've been in startups similar length of time as you. I don't know how we haven't come across each other yet until today, but so I think like in a similar fashion, actually, we've had a bit of an evolution from being one of the first in the crowdfunding space back 8 years ago. And now seeing, I suppose, the evolution into equity crowdfunding. So it's just taken a long time for Australia to actually pick up on this growing trend overseas. But finally, we've got this regime. And I suppose from our point of view is like we're trying to solve one of the biggest issues and the biggest problems for startups in Australia, trying to raise capital. And it's very painful. I went through it myself in Australia, and I think any startup has the exact same experiences as we do. If there's an opportunity to actually open this up to allow anyone to invest into an opportunity or the vision of a founder, we'd like to do it, yeah. So.
And Jessica, I might, because I want to really come to capital raising, but one thing I do want to focus on is partnerships, and specifically, actually I know Monica, I left you out, so we'll jump, apologies. Specifically, I want to look at business partnerships in a startup world. Some people, no, we might chuck it to Monica. Yeah. Sorry. Some people go the startup alone. Yeah. Others go with a partner. Yeah. In your business, have you gone with a partner? Are you a co-founder or a singular founder?
So I'm a co-founder. There's only about 27% of startups in Australia that are solo founders. That number is significantly higher for women. So usually if you're a non-tech woman trying to build a startup on your own, it's quite hard to find a co-founder to go along with you. In my case, I came from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and I knew that we were not capturing the Australian startup ecosystem, and I was hanging out with a lot of tech people. So my co-founder has the technical expertise. But what we are seeing is that the majority of the time, we are at least building out teams of two or more co-founders, and the skill that they wish they had on their founding team is marketing, which I think the previous speaker really spoke to, using that experience from her previous business in that sense.
And on the statistics side of things, singular founders as opposed to co-founders, do you know on stats any benefits to and fro, success rates of having, a co-founder as opposed to a singular founder in a business? So
we have of our founders in Australia right now, 59% are first-time founders.
Yep.
So there is the positive idea of if you have a co-founder that might have had multiple startups prior, you can lean on that experience, but then you're also dealing with an element of asymmetric information. So this comes down to the concept of like your co-founder conundrum. You can go it alone and you can spear it and you can drive what you want. Mm-hmm. But what we are seeing is that when we're talking about capital, most investors won't look at solo founders. They will look at startup founder teams rather than a single founder. So you might be limiting yourself there. But seeing as 60% of our startups are bootstrapped or have been bootstrapped at some point, if you are deciding to go down that route, at least at the beginning, you can really steer your ship.
So one big question, everyone talks about it. You're founding a business, you have absolutely no money. What do you do? And one of the things of like our stage of business, I've raised money differently in Australia to probably a lot of people. And I am very passionate about raising money in Australia, the pros and cons. I'll probably get kicked off stage if I get too much into it. I spoke to Alan before, and he's got a very interesting business that crowdfunds startups. And I love that idea because at the end of the day, I cannot stand how VC companies are experts in a multitude of fields and know better than pretty much everyone else, right? So I love Alan's idea, and I really want him just to touch base on a little bit of this whole idea of crowdfunding. And then I'd like to go down the line, because I know that we've touched base just previously on where your business is at, where you're looking to fund, and why you've made that decision. So we might just start with you, Alan. I think the idea of opening the world to these incredible brands. I think, Alan, you're more as a brand based than like a B2B tech company business, right? My business wouldn't fit onto your thing. But the idea that you can open up the world to anybody that wants to seize an idea and goes, that's a spectacular idea, I want to put some money into that. I think it's a really interesting concept. And if we can elaborate, and then we'll go down the line.
I'll just touch on, I suppose, the initial approach that we're taking with equity crowdfunding in Australia. I feel like it's going to take maybe a couple of years to, I suppose, educate and get everybody up to speed, like particularly like the mums and dads investors and people that may be looking at this as a potential investment class for them if they've got quite a bit of disposable income that they can invest. So our approach at the initial stage is very, I suppose, geared towards consumer-facing companies, like B2C companies, as a way to, in a similar fashion to when you mentioned about bringing partners on board, our strategic partners as investors. We see for a consumer brand the power of actually having invested consumers in the company. So allowing company to build a tribe or a community of people that are really passionate about the brand, and they talk about it and they share it on social and hopefully build the brand and the company from that base of people, and constantly hopefully engage that group of people into the brand and hopefully grow the brand as well. And we've seen that this model has been pretty successful internationally, in the UK especially, because they've had this regime for probably 5 or 6 years now. So. And we've seen that companies and brands especially have been accelerating the growth of their company quite a bit from this model. One case study is a company called Brewdog. Anybody that loves a craft beer probably knows this company. But these guys have pretty much adopted this model again and again, round after round each year. They're pretty much always raising funds from their customer base. Like they've taken on, I think, up to £60 million over 6 raises. The last valuation of the company was £1.3 billion, which is one of the fastest growing companies in the world, actually. So this is a model that I think will be adopted very quickly with the consumer companies, but I think strategically for B2B businesses, if there is, for example, in the case of a marketplace, if there is power in getting one side potentially invested into the platform itself, it can be quite a powerful way to grow as well. So I think in terms of partners, if you can see potentially hundreds or even thousands of potential partners for a B2B business, it should be definitely considered, actually, because this could be a way of getting these people on board. It's just a question of, in my view, a question of how long it takes to get everybody on the same page when you're dealing with a B2B business rather than a consumer. Sorry, I talked a lot there.
So our fundraising history, essentially, we self-funded in the early days. So I had saved a deposit on a house, and I decided to start a company instead. And that was quickly dwindled away, maxed out credit cards next, maxed out personal loans next. Then we did the friends and family round. We kind of had some idea what we were doing by the time we actually asked other people for money, we hope. And then we started sort of formally raising. So we, to date, have raised 3 sort of major rounds, all seed rounds in Australia. So we actually did go to the US, but didn't have any luck. I will caveat that with we went when we were really early and really had no idea what we were doing. So we did have all of our success raising money in Australia, all from sort of high net worth individuals and a couple of angel groups as well. So status-wise, we are going back out to raise in the coming months, which I'm super excited about. However, and it's interesting where we didn't plan on using a platform, but our approach is actually to customers. So a little bit different in the sense that our customers would invest, sort of large corporates, so would invest large portions, fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, you.
I'll just commandeer this microphone.
Yeah.
So we're completely bootstrapped. We haven't raised before, and I think it's because we started out with a very clear message that we wanted to fix an element of the Australian collection, right? The fact that there was no visibility of what was happening with all the people that are here today and across Australia. I think if we were to go overseas, we would reconsider. A few stats on startups in Australia around raising. 37% have raised some amount, and of that, there's 42% that haven't, but have said that they want to in the future, but are just not there yet. So it's good that they're recognising, okay, well, it's in our pipeline, but we need to be hitting certain milestones before we get there. Also, in the next 12 months, 60% said that they were looking to raise in Australia, but 30% said they were looking to raise overseas. So I know that we've all got different feelings about raising in Australia, but there's still, I guess, people are seeing that maybe as a first entry before they go overseas, or maybe they need more of an education around where to raise. But
there's such a significant divide in Australia with tech companies, any startup, whether Australia is a good place, whether we are so far behind the scene with, overseas, and it's quite a passionate divide when you talk to everybody, and there's a lot of new VCs coming out to Australia, and a lot of people wonder if actually they're new at all. Jessica, you're off to the US.
I am, yes.
So you're going through a raise. What are you looking to do?
I've got stars in my eyes and hoping that the US is everything, that I think it will be. I'm sure it won't be, but look, I think the raising process is, we were using swear words earlier to describe it. It's really hard. I have found it very, very hard to raise, which is a very interesting question that we were talking about on email before today, was all about, do you look at raising when you're at idea stage, to fund that idea of yours and get it off the ground quickly, or do you fund after you've got, significant traction and metrics and all that kind of stuff? We took the latter approach. We've been in business 3 years now, and we've iterated twice, and we have really solid metrics around our customer acquisition cost and our lifetime value and our churn rate, and we've got big name clients, which is amazing, but I've still found it really difficult. So I suppose from my experience so far, my advice would be, of those, 40% or so that are looking to raise one day but they feel like they're not quite there yet, I liken it to Tinder. Who's used Tinder? Anyone? Oh my gosh, only a couple. There you go. So you've got to go on a ton of really bad days.
Put his hand up.
Yeah, come on, Alan. You got to go on a lot of really bad dates, that aren't going to really go anywhere. But at the end of the day, you've got to meet as many people as you can, and also build a relationship over time. So I think some of the best investor relationships that I have now, I sort of met up with them originally 2.5 years ago when I wasn't looking to raise, and they've really been along the journey with us and seen us face challenges and overcome them, seen us grow, seen us build a team, seen us fuck up and all that kind of stuff as well. So I think that's where the value is, and I think it's a common misconception in startups that it's like, you're a tech company, you go out and raise and you can do that, in a couple of months, when really it's a big, long relationship process. That's, I find, quite frustrating, but hopefully with a really happy ending.
I could make an analogy with
I
Tinder
know.
band, but I thought I'd leave it alone. It is interesting, the quest of capital raising. I think one thing that you touch base on, which is phenomenal, and I might just go on that again, is I think in a tech company, startup, you are always raising. You talk to every VC company possible, every partnership. And the example I'll give would be Campaign Monitor. They were bought for $1 billion, email marketing quite some time ago. The two boys out of Shire, I don't know if you guys know them, but amazing marketing platform. And their VC company approached them over and over and over again. They just kept on refusing. So when I talk about my VC side and the bone I have the thorn I have in my side is money comes at a cost, and it's a significant cost. Preferential shares will screw you. They will take it more and more and more. So just be very careful the deal you do. But you can get VCs that will work with you and put together a phenomenal team. How do you find Australian VCs, because you've all spoken to them, compared to, I don't know if you have done US money, but we've all read about it. Have you seen a difference? Alan, you come from, I'm going to say Ireland, but you'll probably shoot me. Yeah, you do come from Ireland, right? That's why you asked for Guinness and not water. I like it. How have you seen over in Europe or in Ireland to Australia? Or have you been here for 20 years and you just can't shake the accent?
Well, I started the startup here in Australia, so...
Oh, you don't? Okay.
But I did take VC from Europe, so which is a bit of a mix. But my experience, I suppose I never got to probably the stage with VCs in Australia because we raised like a few years back.
Friends and family?
For possible at the time. We actually took VC from Europe, one of the most active actually in Australia at the moment. The feedback on VCs, it's I'm in an awkward position talking about VCs here because you never know when you might be talking to them. So
obviously I won't be tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think it's maturing quite a bit. I think I'm being diplomatic here completely, but I think it's maturing a lot. Like we've been around for 8 years. Like when we were like starting out, there was absolutely nothing. Like there was probably a few people that we could go to, and they weren't doing many many investments, if that makes sense, compared to what's happening at the moment. Like I think there is a lot more opportunities in this space compared to what I suppose we faced even back 5-6 years ago. So I think with my European VC, I think they've seen we took investment from startup founders, and I think that's a big thing, actually, that I suppose helped us quite a bit in the first year that we took on investment. So there is value there, but you just need to know as well the value that you're getting from VCs as well. So I learned a lot, actually, about user acquisition, customer acquisition, cost of acquisition, all of these things through that experience. And I think some of these things actually are really, really valuable for the company, and it was very valuable for me. So I don't have a dislike to VCs, maybe in some aspects, but maybe I haven't got to the stage of negotiating too hard with them in Australia. So
I don't have a dislike. I'm going to put the caveat out there, but I do think that more and more founding companies need to push back more and more on the money and offers that we're given, because at the end of the day, you guys still have the power, and the more we go, hang on, that is not a fair deal because no one else is doing that kind of thing, it will change the landscape even more. I'm going to jump, and I haven't given you guys heads up on this. There's a hell of a lot of free money in Australia as well. R&D tax grants, government grants, etc., etc. Do you guys utilise, and I think I might throw it to you, Monica, because you seem to have a hell of a lot of stats going on. Can you tell me about it? Because I do a lot of work with the government, federal government. I had a minister in my office yesterday going around the R&D tax grants. Few people know, so I'd really love it if you had some stats.
Yeah, R&D tax, the EDMG, you should be looking at that one. Good. So actually, it's only 1/3 of startups apply for a grant or something, or a government program, and no, it's like 40% do, 30% actually receive any. The ones that rate the highest are the R&D tax and also the iAccelerate, so the things that are happening up in Queensland, because they're pushing it really hard. We do have a question in Startup Muster around sentiment towards grants and programs, because one of our biggest customers as well is government. They want to understand what's going on, and we want to be able to help them start to move towards making data-driven decisions and, reflecting back onto what has worked with these programs or not. And it's the fact that, everyone here, we're time poor. If we have to go through the selection criteria, we have to go through the government speak and the government writing. Like they're being classic government. They are putting it out there, but in a package that really meets their needs, not how we can interpret and understand. And when the focus is always on raising, you kind of go, okay, well, where am I going to deviate my efforts when raising takes so long, especially in Australia? So, I don't think they're being utilised as effectively as they could be, and a bit of reform wouldn't be bad, but the R&D is definitely the one that wins out, which is great. It is phenomenal, but so many startups actually don't know what it is or put it in the too hard basket.
Or how to get it as well, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot, you got to sift through a lot to get there.
Yeah, ask your accountant, get your devs involved, document everything.
Yes. The which one? The document everything? Yeah, I mean, the documentation. So, I mean, we've done the extremes. I think from our business, we've run it on, we bootstrap. We got family and friends. We've got millions of dollars back in R&D tax grant. We're about to take the government to tribunal because of stuff with overseas people, which is a known thing now, because basically the tax grant gets used up super, super quickly, and it's dwindling more and more and more, and some of the big businesses get it. I'd love to deep dive more into that later on, and off stage about the stats to that, because it's quite an interesting thing. Jess, you're about to go to America. Did you know about the marketing tax grant?
I did, yes. I can't remember. I think actually Christy. It was Christy who told me about it when she went to San Francisco. Because the Export Marketing Development Grant basically allows you to claim, I think it's 50 cents in the dollar for activities you spend on expanding out into another market. That was very not eloquent, but you know what I mean. And R&D has been an absolute saviour for us. That's basically research and development you can claim back. So if you're building a tech product, basically, particularly if you're creating new knowledge or doing something that no one else is doing, that's huge, and you should definitely be looking into it. We've got tens of thousands from R&D, and when you're a bootstrap startup, that is always welcome.
Danielle, we haven't touched on it. Failures. I love to hear more about failures from startups.
I've got plenty of them.
Well, let's go for it. Top 3.
Well, we could say my first 3 iterations of
With the
Scratch.
iteration. Mainly around what happened and what did you learn from it, and has it made you a better business today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first product that we started developing was a virtual change room for fashion. So essentially there's like a 25% return rate in online shopping, and we thought we would be the ones, 2 non-technical co-founders, to solve that problem. And it was very much a case of just thought it was a great idea. Just thought that we both had fashion backgrounds, thought it was a problem worth solving, and thought we would be the ones to do it. And actually we actually built a 3D model of this, but to render and simulate a 3D object in the attention span of a consumer 8 years ago on whatever hardware they had at home was just not possible. It was sort of millions of dollars of R&D and a really crappy commercialization path. So we parked that, and obviously 8 years later we're still not virtually trying on clothes when we shop online, so perhaps it was a whimsical idea. But I guess the big thing is it took us a long time to learn about talking to customers, and it's funny because you read that in the Lean Startup book, but there's a lot of ego, I think, in starting your own startup, and you do think that you're, hustling so hard and spending 12 hours working on this thing a day or however long, so you should know what you're doing. And we pivoted again into a sort of a social network for fashion and then an inventory solution. It wasn't until we kind of were in this inventory play that one of these customers that we were pitching to, who was not interested in the inventory play, noticed that we were doing sort of press monitoring and could pick up influencer mentions as well. And it wasn't sort of until that point in time when a customer was actually saying, I will pay you for that thing that we didn't think was a thing, that we really started to listen to our customers. So that was the biggest failure, and it took us 4 years to learn it and 3 pivots of a startup. So it was a very hard lesson to learn.
But you're still here.
We are.
Monica, surveys, massive market, data's the biggest thing in business today. You can plug it into different AI, machine learning, robotics, etc. How do you sell your product, market your product, when there are a lot of marketing? Every day I get something, can you fill this form out?
So when Christy was talking about you got to do like non-scalable things to be scalable, a big thing for the last 3 years of my life has been going all around this country and meeting as many people in the startup ecosystem as possible. Like, I'm going to Toowoomba, I'm going to Bunbury, I'm going to like Mackay, pretty much everywhere and anywhere to get to know everyone so that they could understand that this is not the ethos of Startup Muster is all about really ensuring that we've got quality data that is in the hands of ministers, that's in the hands of big business looking to understand how they're going to engage with startups, in the hands of policy makers, the hands of private industry coming to look, or foreign investors looking at what's happening in Australia, so that they've got representative and useful information at their fingertips. So this isn't just, take part in this and you'll get a report. It's like, this is all actually about nation building. It's about future-proofing what we're all trying to do here, so that people in 10 years are not dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with raising and trying to find investment. So so really hammering in that message that we're doing this because there was a lack of it in the community, and maybe we're just more altruistic than what you see out there normally. But yeah, definitely taking a very non-tech approach. We have a really cool survey technology. We could go and spin that out but it hasn't, that deviates from our main purpose.
Which is the startup community,
and growing
etc.
that.
And when's your first, this is not your first year, right?
No, this is our 5th year.
So when's the report come out? When's it due? And
thanks for allowing me to pitch.
Exactly, right.
So report comes out in October. The collection is still happening right now. So it finishes on Monday, and it's at startupmuster.com. The whole survey design, all that, we've done it ourselves. It's really fun. It's it's the most fun you'll ever have doing a survey. And if you want to look, you heard me talk about the stats today. They get used across media. They get used the people that come to us to understand what's going on are everything from federal government to local council to, the big businesses with their logos on these Barangaroo buildings. You're contributing to help build this nation.
I think it's imperative everyone in the audience that's got a startup or not does fill it out. I think we don't see a lot of what's going on in the government, which is a bad thing. What they are doing digitally is phenomenal. So they've been over to Estonia. They've based what the government should be in digital on the Estonian government. And if you want to see what that's about, have a look. It's just beyond. And they're taking a lot of data from the market, from the public. So I implore everyone to get on there and fill it out, because it will, especially if you're starting up now, a year from now, 2 years from now, it's this data that's really going to drive where it goes, R&D tax grants, etc. So I think it's amazing, and I think we need to get on board.
And you can, because you just go in and update your information as you filled in one time, you actually can keep a playbook of what you've been doing over the years. And go back and go, wow, that's what I was doing in 2018. So you actually have the numbers there for it too.
Team, we said before we'd like to open some questions up. We've only got 7 minutes and 16 seconds. I don't know if it was part of scripting that we could open it up, but I think it's important that people in the audience can ask a question that they want to. So if anyone wants to ask a question, put their hands up. Otherwise, we'll just keep having a chat.
Quick one for Jessica.
Hey, you interviewed me last year at B2B Rocks.
I did. The quick question.
Missed me, have you?
Well, I thought I might ask a question now again. I missed that part.
Go for it.
Just wanted to see why you're heading to the States now.
I got accepted into the Austrade Landing Pads program. So essentially, we've been our second largest traffic source to Collabosaurus is the US, and we have some early traction over there already. So it's a logical next step. We've also found that the uptake of Collabosaurus over there is it's a much shorter sales cycle, and then playing into our seed round and stuff like that, and then looking at opportunities to expand in the US, it would be ideal to have a US investor with market knowledge who can assist. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
No worries.
He took my question.
Yeah.
I don't have a backup. So.
Bit of a question. You guys are talking about funding and raising and VC and all sort of great stuff. I think there's an elephant in the room. Talk to us about the equity crowdfunding thing, because that's really, really new, right? And how's that looking? And is that a tool we could potentially use?
Of course, yes. I'm going to say yes anyway.
Yes.
Birchal.
And I'm the elephant in the room, which is odd. This is a huge opportunity, I see. I think even from a marketing sense, one key aspects to the legislation change is being able to advertise the fact that you're raising investment. And that's the first approach that we're taking with equity crowdfunding. Get your profile up there in front of people and actually just put it out to the market. You can use social media, you can use every means possible that you use for your getting customers or user acquisition at the moment as a way to promote the fact that you're looking for investment as well. So that's the approach that we're taking first. It's the very first step in working with Birchal is getting your profile up there and advertising the shit out of your company.
Partner with Danielle. There you go.
That's it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So so that's one aspect to it. We're also trying to work with a lot of potential advisors and also some of the networks, angel group networks, wholesale networks, self-managed super funds, people that I suppose facilitate investment into early stage businesses in this case. So I think it's quite early days, but I think it's going to evolve quite quickly in Australia. I think in my experience, Australians tend to pick up things quicker than probably anywhere else in the world. So I think we'll see this year evolve and change quite quickly, and I think hopefully we'll see even the first B2B businesses actually adopt this model quite soon as well. So if there is interest, I think particularly the one question I have for particularly B2B businesses, can the business value from having lots, potentially hundreds or thousands of people or investors invest into the business? And in the sense of B2B, can you see potentially tens, hundreds, or even thousands of people or businesses investing into the company, and what value does that provide the company as well? So they obviously become better customers. I think that's a fact, So they're pretty much locking themselves into you as a business.
And they're going to sell their product anyways, right? Because they want to make money.
Exactly. So there's lots of value, but you need to think about the value of taking on tens, hundreds, because for a B2B business, maybe there is things that this is pretty untested in terms of Australia, but maybe B2B businesses don't want the hassle potentially of dealing with that. So I'm being completely transparent. Yeah, of course it's an option, but I think you just need to know what the value is. Yeah.
It's maybe a difficult question, but how do you keep yourself sane in the sort of buzz of it all and find some sort of balance in life?
That was one of your questions.
Yeah, it was one of my questions.
Oh, right.
I think I'm going to let these guys answer it, but I think startups, people underestimate the stress personally, the strain it'll put on your relationships at home, family and friends. I know my personal platform of friends is completely different to what it was 10 years ago. And I think people underestimate that, but I'll let these guys talk it through. Why don't we start?
It's ridiculous, isn't it? I think you have to be a bit crazy to be running a startup. It's a great trait to have. I think I keep myself sane. I think everyone's really different and you need to figure out what's right for you. I do two things. The first thing is I prioritize sleep, because if I don't get enough sleep, I work at 20% productivity anyway. So when I find I'm up at 4 and in bed at midnight or so, I'll make sure I calendar in time to have sleep, which sounds a bit ridiculous, but it works a treat for me. The other thing I do is I worked out when my power hours were, so when I'm the most productive. And for me, that's in the morning, middle of the day, I'm useless, and then in late at night, I have a second wind, and I really want to keep working. So how I structure my days now is I work in the morning, I take meetings or do exercise in the middle of the day, and then I work at night, because that's just how I work best. That's how I stay sane. And some really great friends in startups who can totally relate and get it.
Danielle?
So definitely haven't mastered this yet. And my co-founder is also my partner in life. Added stress levels. So things that work for us, for me personally, it's yoga and wine. Sometimes just depends how bad the day is.
Yoga whining.
But also scheduling time because as a startup founder, you can't always talk to your team about the issues that you're facing. So having the right people around you to be able to talk to is super important. And that's actually where, full circle on this investment conversation, actually having investors that you can have difficult discussions with is super valuable as well. And, if you do work with a partner, we schedule in separate times to make sure that we are actually looking after ourselves as individuals rather than just always being at work or at home together, and that works really well for us.
Monica?
Yeah, so my partner as well, he has another startup. So we're not in the same startup together, but we at least have an alignment of understanding what the hell both of us are going through. We do exercise together, but we do trail running. So he's a triathlete and I do trail running. So that takes a lot of my weekend because I'm trying to do larger amounts of kilometers, but it's really great just to get my head out of where I am and be out in nature and just like realize that there's a whole other world out there that that doesn't involve a laptop. And then also I practice being nice to myself inside my head. I'm sorry, but like...
So we were saying you have to be a little crazy. That sounds about right.
Well, it's a thing like, you can easily beat yourself up about everything and everyone else will ultimately can add to that. So you've got to actually, have a little bit of self-love and self-care going on too.
Alan, you'll get the last word, my friend.
I had to learn to stop cursing a lot as well. Like if you've met any Irish, you'll know that they curse way too much. Yeah. So I think one of the first lessons I had to learn was stop cursing as much in front of the team and that bringing down the vibe. But I think I suppose I try to control emotion, and if it gets too much, I go for a run. I try and find some exercise. I get lost in my runs sometimes and forget I'm even running. So I think that's probably my release. I think exercise and doing something that you enjoy, something where you actually takes you out of the day-to-day. So I think that's pretty much.
So panelists, thanks very much, guys out there. I hope we've given you an insight to what goes on.